What happens when Hollywood's most legendary tough guy walks into a den of daytime television hosts who think they can push him around? Well, you're about to find out, and trust me, this is one confrontation you won't see coming. Clint Eastwood, the man who made careers out of staring down bad guys and delivering justice with a whisper, found himself face to face with Joy Behar in what started as a routine promotional appearance, but quickly spiraled into television chaos. Before we dive into this explosive encounter, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story is going to leave you speechless. The cameras rolled live, and Whoopi Goldberg smiled warmly at their guest. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Clint Eastwood," she announced as the studio audience erupted in applause. Eastwood nodded politely as he settled into his chair, his weathered hands resting calmly on the armrests. "Thank you for having me," he said in that unmistakable gravelly voice. "So Clint, tell us about your latest project," Whoopi continued, keeping things light and professional. "What drew you to this particular story?" "Well, it's about second chances," Eastwood replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes people deserve another shot at redemption, even when society has written them off." Sarah Haynes leaned forward with genuine interest. "That's such a beautiful theme. How do you choose which stories to tell at this stage in your incredible career?" "I look for truth," Eastwood answered simply. "Stories that say something real about the human condition. Hollywood's got enough fantasy." The conversation flowed naturally for several minutes, with Eastwood sharing insights about his directing process and working with actors. The studio audience was clearly captivated by his presence and wisdom. But Joy Behar had been unusually quiet, sitting back in her chair with a knowing smile. She had been waiting for her moment, and now she saw it. "Clint, can I ask you something?" Joy interjected, her tone shifting noticeably. "You talk about truth and redemption. But don't you think some of your past comments about certain political figures might contradict that message?" The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Whoopi shot Joy a warning glance, but it was too late. Eastwood's eyes narrowed slightly as he turned to face Joy directly. "Which comments would those be, Joy?" "Oh, you know," Joy said with false sweetness, "your support for politicians who shall remain nameless but who have made some pretty questionable statements about women and minorities." "I don't recall making any statements that disparaged women or minorities," Eastwood replied evenly, his voice carrying that familiar steel edge that movie audiences knew well. "But by association," Joy pressed on, clearly enjoying herself, "don't you think your political endorsements send a message?" The other hosts exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't the direction anyone had planned for the interview to go. Eastwood leaned back in his chair and fixed Joy with a stare that could have frozen water. "Young lady, I've been in this business since before you were born. I've worked with people of every background, every political persuasion, and I judge them by their character, not their party affiliation." "Young lady?" Joy's voice rose an octave. "Excuse me, but I think I have every right to ask tough questions of my guests. And I have every right not to answer gotcha questions from someone who's more interested in creating controversy than having a conversation." Eastwood shot back, his calm demeanor never wavering despite the edge in his voice. Joy's face flushed red. "Gotcha questions? I'm asking about your public statements, Clint. That's called journalism. Is that what we're calling it now?" Eastwood replied with a slight chuckle that somehow made the insult even more cutting. "In my day, journalism involved research and facts, not fishing expeditions." Whoopi tried to intervene. "Let's maybe get back to talking about your film, Clint." But Joy wasn't backing down. "No, I think this is important. You can't just come on television and expect softball questions when you've made controversial political statements." "Such as?" Eastwood's voice remained steady, but his eyes had that dangerous glint that anyone who'd watched his movies would recognize. "Well, there was that whole empty chair thing," Joy said smugly, referring to a political convention appearance from years earlier. "You mean when I used a creative metaphor to make a point about political accountability?" Eastwood replied. "Yeah, I remember that. What about it?" "Don't you think it was a little, I don't know, unhinged?" Joy pressed, clearly thinking she had found her angle. The studio audience was dead silent now. Even the crew members had stopped moving, sensing that something significant was happening. Eastwood leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to that whisper-quiet tone that was somehow more intimidating than shouting. "Joy, let me ask you something. How many films have you made?" "What does that have to do with anything?" Joy shot back defensively. "Just answer the question. How many films have you directed, produced, or starred in?" "That's not the point. I'm a television host and comedian." "Right. And how many Academy Awards have you won?" Joy's voice was getting higher. "Again, that's not relevant to this discussion." "How about this then?" Eastwood continued, his tone becoming more pointed. "How many careers have you launched? How many young actors have you given their first break? How many stories have you told that actually meant something to people?" "I entertain people every day on this show," Joy replied, but her confidence was clearly shaking. "Do you?" Eastwood asked with genuine curiosity. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you ambush guests and try to create controversy for ratings. Is that your idea of entertainment?" Sarah Haynes jumped in, trying to lighten the mood. "Clint, your films have entertained millions of people around the world. What's been the most rewarding part of your career?" But Eastwood wasn't ready to let Joy off the hook yet. "You know what, Sarah? I'll answer that. The most rewarding part has been working with professionals. People who understand that respect is earned, not demanded. People who don't hide behind a panel of co-hosts to take cheap shots at their guests." Joy's mouth fell open. "Cheap shots? I'm asking legitimate questions about your political views." "No," Eastwood corrected her. "You're trying to create a viral moment for your social media clips. There's a difference between asking about someone's views and trying to ambush them." "I'm not ambushing anyone," Joy protested. "I'm doing my job." "Your job is to interview guests about why they're here," Eastwood replied calmly. "I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of, a story about redemption and second chances. You want to talk about politics and create drama." Whoopi made another attempt to steer the conversation. "The film does sound fascinating, Clint. Can you tell us about the main character?" "It's about a man who's made mistakes," Eastwood said, his eyes still locked on Joy, "but who's trying to do better. Sometimes the biggest obstacles aren't the ones in front of you, but the people who want to keep you defined by your past instead of letting you grow." The metaphor wasn't lost on anyone in the studio, least of all Joy, who was clearly getting more agitated by the minute. "That's a beautiful message," Sarah said, clearly trying to keep things on track. "Redemption is such a powerful theme in storytelling." But Joy wasn't about to let the moment pass. "Speaking of redemption, don't you think some people are beyond it? I mean, when someone consistently supports divisive politics, at what point do we stop giving them chances?" Eastwood's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Are we talking about the character in my film? Or are you trying to make this personal again?" "I'm talking about accountability," Joy replied with false righteousness. "Public figures have a responsibility to their fans. Do they now?" Eastwood's voice carried that dangerous quiet that anyone familiar with his movies would recognize. "And what responsibility do television hosts have to their guests? To ask the tough questions that matter?" Joy shot back immediately. "No," Eastwood said firmly. "To treat people with basic human decency, something you seem to have forgotten." The other hosts exchanged panicked glances. Whoopi was frantically trying to signal the producers, but Joy was too caught up in what she thought was her moment of triumph. "Human decency?" Joy laughed harshly. "That's rich coming from someone who spent decades playing violent characters and glorifying gun culture." The studio audience gasped audibly. Even by the View's standards, this was crossing a line. Eastwood sat back in his chair and studied Joy for a long moment, as if seeing her clearly.